wake up every minute with the fever dreams. I put the mind to a limit where it needs to be. I work blind, got vision I don't need to see. I'm picking mind over matter, I believe in me. I need to find more hours in the day to breathe. Need to find more power in the way I be. And when my mind turns out with the painful scenes, I need to scream out loud, I can't stop me. I wanna be the greatest like Rocky. You know I leave them all hating like a hobby. I'm out here making moves like a lobby. And if you ain't with me, it's you lost, see. I got my mind on the facts, I'm a python, grab what I like real fast. Choke until I have everything I attack, everything that I lack, everything that I want and I see, matter of fact. Cause I'm my own worst enemy. Only if I let it be. I can control anything if I can just think carefully. I control my destiny. Deep up in my mind I manifest it. Every morning I wake up obsessed and
What's up everybody, welcome back to the channel. This video is going to be a little bit different than what we've been doing before. Like I said in my last video, if you watched it, of the was it part 4 of the airbrush panel. We got some 3D printed, it's actually a sign, so it's a 3D printed sign. It's out of like a material plastic. It's pretty thick stuff, but it is kind of thin at the same time, that we're going to be painting for a big company that's relatively close to me. Have a friend that works there, and he hit me up asking me if I could paint it. I went over there and looked at it, and it's something I think we can tackle. I've already went ahead and worked on it a little bit, but I'm going to show you guys what it looks like now. So it's these big old plastic chunks. Like I said, it is, I mean, it's not really super lightweight, but then again it is. What I went ahead and did was I went ahead and I scuffed everything on my DA, and by hand I took 80 grit to it raw, and then I made sure it was scuffed really well. I didn't really sand too hard because I didn't want to break through this stuff. I don't know really how thin it is on the inside, or if it's actually solid or not. I'm pretty sure it's solid, but it does feel kind of flimsy, so I was really careful going through with 80 because I know 80 can shoot through some things. So went ahead and scuffed it all by hand, and then I cleaned it all up. And I used a plastic cleaner, just like I would do anything else, like a plastic bumper or anything like that. And I shot it with some epoxy. Now, I didn't go through and fix anything before, just because I wanted the epoxy to be on there first, because I know this epoxy is actually really good for having to paint on things that shouldn't be painted. I use this a lot, like if I'm doing like a color match on a chrome bumper or a really weird plastic or anything like that I'm kind of debating on painting. I always epoxy first. A lot of guys will use etch primer or anything like that, they'll actually eat into it. This epoxy, I've been using this epoxy for years, and it works really well, and it gets into really hard spaces like inside these letters, and it just allows for that. It just creates a chemical, or it hooks to this stuff really well, and anything that I want to paint that usually shouldn't be painted. But it's really good for that. You can literally spray this stuff on like a piece of glass without, brand new piece of glass sprayed on there, and it'll stick on there. I've tried it before and it works really well. So that's the secret to painting things like this that you think shouldn't be painted. You just have to really provide a mechanical scratch to it. That way it hooks itself in there, and then you gotta let it dry. And then after it dries, you could take sandpaper like I did here, scuff it, paint it, seal it, paint it, whatever, prime it, whatever you need to do. A lot of guys that do like restoration work, they'll use this epoxy on their cars if they strip it to bare metal, and then they put this on there before they do any type of body work. And it protects that metal underneath from rusting, and it makes a really good surface to work off of if you want something to stick to something. So but in this video, what we're going to do, I've already went ahead and went through scuffing it, and I sanded it down again with some 80 grit, and then what we're going to do here is we're going to put some glaze, just a little bit of glaze, over top of the surface that you're going to see. Even though it's a sign, it's going to get hung up in the air. All these little cracks and everything from the printer that you can see, we're going to fill that stuff in. And we're going to make this surface of each of these panels here really smooth. And it don't take much. It's going to take a really light coat of glaze. I'm going to show you guys what I use to do that. You can use the plastic glaze or this metal glaze. Like I said, you use it really thin. This is not stuff you want to use to build things up or, you know, fill anything in. That's really deep. Just a little bit of light coat on it, almost like a see-through coat. You let it dry, you sand it down just like body filler, but it's really thin. And then what we're going to do after that, after we get these finished, we're going to put 3 or 4 coats of primer on there. We'll let it sit overnight, and then we're going to come back in, sand it back down, and re-primer it again. And then by the time we sand it back down again, it should be ready for paint. So I'm going to put you guys on time lapse, probably, maybe not, I don't know. I'm going to mix some glaze up here, and I'll show you guys how to get this stuff laid out. Alright, so we got the glaze on everything, all the areas on pretty much the flat surfaces on the tops. Not really too worried about the sides because once it's hung up you're not really going to see it, but anything that I feel like needs to be fixed, I am going to fix those, but for right now we're just doing the tops. So I'm going to show you guys. It's all covered. Like I said, it's a really thin coat. You don't need much. Certain areas have more than others because of imperfections that were in the 3D printing process, but everything is pretty much covered. And if you've never messed with like lightweight filler or anything like this, it dries really quick, so like try not to be too picky on yourself getting it on here. Get it as smooth as you can because you're just going to sand it right off. As long as it's filling what you need to fill and get it kind of straight and kind of like uniform, you'll be all right. But this stuff does dry really quick, especially like on days like today where it's really hot and humid. So get on there as quick as you can because it will dry up really quick, and just try your best to get it as smooth as you can. Obviously a brand new spreader goes a long way, and like me, that I'm reusing an old one. But most of this stuff is going to be fine. Like I said, after I get this stuff sanded, I'm going to go around to the sides. I'm going to try to fix, you know, any imperfections that I think needs fixed. There are a couple gouges that I think that needs filled in. So we'll do that, but I'm going to sand this stuff with 180 sandpaper by block. And then after I get everything, I'm going to go through and poke all these holes back in because this is where they're going to mount it up, because we did fill in a lot of them, like that one right there. So that one's completely filled. So once we get it sanded, we'll poke those holes back out. That way they mount it back up where they need to. And we'll get on to fixing the sides and getting this stuff in primer. All right, so we got all this sanded, blocked this all down, went around all the edges, filled all the imperfections I could see I needed filled. I finished this with 180. I started with 80. I know I said I was going to do 180 all the way through, but the 80 grit just cut it down really good. Then I went back over it with 180 real quick. Got all this stuff knocked out. Then I knocked all the holes out of it. But we're going to get this hung up and get some primer mixed up. And we're probably going to put anywhere between 4 or 5 coats of primer on this thing. Let it sit overnight. Any imperfections that we see, we're going to block them back down, fix them, and block everything back down again. And then prime it another 4 or 5 times. And then that should be ready for paint after that. So let's get some paint mixed up.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 yo, go, go, go. Hustle hard, hustle every single day. I'll be making moves till I'm buried in my grave. To the system, I don't wanna be a slave. I've been doing shit my way, or the highway. And in the driveway is a nice range. Cause I grind through the climb, I invite pain. You never hear me, bitch, nah, I don't complain. Just gotta flip the switch and you can go and obtain anything you want, anything you need. Your mind's got the key ingredients, the weed. Build a seed, you can make it. Just like hey kid, don't ever let them get inside your head. They'll tell you what to do and how you say. Everything you know that you can get. Don't let them guide your life towards you go. Don't fight for what I love with everyone. My life is full of things I won't forget. I choose them all to push me to my goal. Some people wish the time was like it's on. But for me, I think all the time. I tell myself that everything will end up alright. Just push yourself, test yourself. Better what you like. Finding the way, don't be lazy. Always what goes to find. That's why you step with open minds. People can change your life. Feel friends with intention. Can't help but feel alive. Find the passion, take some action. What's the best at a time? Just be patient, make a statement. Try to enjoy your life. They'll try to keep you on the game. Never say slow down. Rise and rise and down. Push past, start again. Feel it when you down. Try to find a way to go. Everything is about. We can never be alone. I'll make you love like a rose. Speak loud. No darling, I'm sorry. Even when you're all alone. To the world, yeah. Just love.
Alright, got all the parts in primer, or all the pieces. I put a lot on it. There were some things that I wasn't really happy with, so I pretty much buried as much as I can. These pieces are hanging vertical, so it's a little bit harder for to get things fully without running them, because they are hanging vertical and gravity kind of pulls everything down. If they were laying flat, we could have buried it and it wouldn't, no problems at all. But some of them did run, but it's not a big deal. We're gonna and then fix everything. But after this, after we block them, I'm gonna say they're probably gonna be 90% ready for paint. I'll just do that last session of primer just to make sure they're just that extra perfect. So I'm gonna show you guys what they look like. They are pretty still wet, so you'll kind of see like a glossiness to them. And on the letters, you can see I got pretty heavy because I wanted to bury as much as I can, and then that way it'd be less to fix. Just some small imperfections that were still there, but everything's in primer. Like I said, I'll let these sit overnight, and usually it takes, I mean in this heat, it probably takes a good 6 hours, then you can block them, but I just usually wait till overnight just to give that extra time it needs. So other than that, yeah, that's it. So like I said, let them dry. I'll sand them back down, primer them again, sand them back down, and they'll be ready for paint. And then we can go over colors and things like that and what we're gonna do to them. So thanks for watching. Till next time, see you.